Hello, my name is Bonnie, and this is my YouTube channel, A Knitter Obsessed. This is my knitting podcast where I talk about all of my projects and just all things knitting, as well as a little bit about my other hobbies as well. Welcome, and thank you so much for clicking on this video. This is going to be my first knit and chat. So my plan is to work on a project and just chat about some topics for a little while and keep it a little bit more casual and a little bit more go with the flow than my regular podcast episodes. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. It should be a lot of fun. And hopefully you'll have something to knit on as well, and we can knit together or crochet or, whatever your personal hobby is. I would love to share this time with you. I did have one matter of business that I wanted to deal with before we get into the knitting, and that is my Drachenfels shawl. I wore this in my last knitting podcast episode, and I completely forgot to mention the pattern or what it was or say anything about it. So really quick, I just want to say this is my Drachenfels shawl by Melanie Berg, worn in my last knitting podcast episode. I have no idea what it was knit in. I knit this, I think back in 2016. It came in a kit from Craftsy, I think. And I didn't document any of my knitting back at that time, so I don't have any information on the yarn, but it's in just a black, a white, and a gray. I love this. I wear it every year throughout the winter. I find that the colors go really well with pretty much all of my jackets and stuff, and it's just a really nice shawl. It's really easy to wear. And I've said in past episodes that I'm not much of a shawl knitter, but that more so has to do with the fact I tend to not know how to wear them. So the fact that this one feels very easy to wear makes it a win in my book. I absolutely love it. Highly recommend. And I did just notice as I was getting this ready for this video, but I've worn it so much, I've actually worn a little hole into it right here. So this guy is actually going to be going... I'm pretty sure I can repair that. I have some leftover white yarn around, and I just need to capture some of these stitches, and I think it'll be okay, but this guy's gonna go get a little bit of knitting surgery here pretty soon, because I don't want to have to stop wearing this. But yeah, Drachenfell shawl by Melanie Berg. I am so sorry for not mentioning any of that in the last podcast episode. Just completely slipped my mind. But yeah, great shawl. Highly recommend. But for what I'm going to be knitting on today, I'm going to be working on the body, ribbing in my Bibliophile 2 sweater by Alicia Plummer. So I've got lots and lots of stockinette to work on while we talk. Yeah, should be nice. I'm going to move this little marker down so that we can track how far I get today. And yeah, I'll show you what I get done at the end. Sorry, I'm having trouble getting this in the stitch. There we go. But yeah, I'll show you how much I get done at the end of this knit and chat. So, without further ado, if you want to grab your knitting, I will start on mine. So, what I wanted to talk about today, what I was thinking, and this is, new podcast for me, new beginning, whole new adventure. And even though it's not the beginning of the year, it's really got me thinking a lot about change. And not, kind of like change and goals and sort of those things you think about at the beginning of a new year. But, I know it's March. I know it's not the beginning of a new year, but it has that same kind of energy. And so I was thinking about what my goals are with not just my knitting, definitely with my knitting, but not just with my knitting, but also with my podcast, and really just in a lot of the areas of my life. I'm not usually much of a goal setter. I'm usually more of like I'll set really random goals. Like one time my New Year's resolution was just to go to the dentist that year because I just wanted an easy win. Or I'll have New Year's resolutions that are like, I want to go see a concert that year or something. Like usually they're fun. They're not really strict. I'm just in general, not a big strict goal person. Also, I am so sorry. My dogs keep walking back and forth on the hardwood floor right now. They just seem a little restless. So if you hear a little clicking, that's just their little feet. They'll probably settle down here in a few minutes. But that being said, so for not being much of a goal person, I do feel like knitting is a hobby that lends itself well to some sort of goal setting because of the way you start certain projects and complete them. And like there's sort of a goal of completing each project inherently built in on some level. And so it's easy to come up with goals that aren't too stressful, but that do still serve to sort of, guide the hobby, if you will. And so, I don't know, I was just thinking about what I wanted to be, what my goals were, and this is not a strict anything. Like, I'm not gonna be upset if I don't reach all of these. I'm not going to let them stress me out. They're more so just my thoughts right now at this point. And I thought it would be interesting just to record them, and then maybe, when my podcast has been around for a year or so, come back and see what I actually ended up doing and seeing, did these intentions really influence that year much at all, or did it go completely off the rails? Or, it's just an interesting reflection tool, I think, more than anything. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm not setting strict goals. I'm just sort of setting a start point for later reflections. There we go. Sorry, it was a bit wordy to get there. I was trying to figure out how to organize my thoughts on that. But that being said, I do have quite a few goals in regards to what I would like to knit, as well as a few just about my knitting itself, a few that are podcast related, and then a few that are related to my other main hobby, which is ballet, which you guys probably know by now. I keep talking about it in every episode. I didn't mean for this to be partially a ballet podcast, but it is one at this point. We're just embracing it. You guys I'll give you updates on my ballet life too. I think it's fun. But starting with the knitting goals, most of my knitting goals are actually things I would like to knit, because despite the fact I've been knitting since I was like 10 years old, so 20 years of knitting on and off, there are a lot of things I haven't knit. I knit a lot of the same things over and over again for most of that time. A lot of fingerless mitts, a lot of hats, shawls and scarves, blankets. But I've missed quite a big category, which is pretty much garment knitting. I hadn't knit any garments until this year. And the other one is sock knitting. I have never knit a sock. And that just feels wrong to me. Like, I don't think you have to be a sock knitter to be a knitter, but I do feel like I want to try it. Like, I want to know what the sock knitting hype is all about, and I want to own a pair of knit socks that I've knit for myself. So my very first goal is to knit a pair of socks this year. I actually already have the yarn. I got it on sale when Knit Picks is doing their yearly sale where they do the like $2 skeins of yarn. And so it's this skein of, I think it's Stroll from Knit Picks, and it's crazy variegated. Like, there's so many colors in it. And so I think it'll be a really fun pair of just crazy and colorful and fun socks. And so my plan right now is to knit the, I just want to find a good vanilla sock pattern and just knit something really basic with them. And I'm thinking about trying to find a contrasting like mini skein of sock yarn somewhere and do some contrasting heels and toes and cuffs, because I do think that's very cute. So yeah, I already have the yarn. I already have the plan. It's just going to be about when it gets on my needles. But yeah, sometime this year, I would like to knit a pair of socks. So that's my first goal. My next ones are all to do with my garments themselves. So I have knit 2 sweaters at this point. This is my third. And the first 3 that I did were all fairly basic raglans, just to get my feet wet, get an idea of how to knit a sweater, since I did not know. Um, so for the next ones, my goals is just to push my techniques a little bit. So very specifically, I want to knit a cabled sweater, a lace sweater, and a colorwork sweater. I think that's sort of, it feels like kind of like the trifecta, like, you know, one of each. um, so I already have plans for these. Again, if you've been watching this, you know I've been raving about knitting the Wishbone sweater by Veronika Lindberg, which I actually cast that on 2 days ago now. So very excited for that. That one's happening. But, you know, the goal being to have that finished cabled sweater. And I love cables. I've never knit a cabled sweater, but I've knit a lot of cabled scarves, a lot of cabled hats. Cables are one of my favorite things to knit. So I'm not worried about a cabled sweater, but it is a bigger scale of project than I've ever taken on for a cable project. I do think the Wishbone sweater for a first cabled sweater is very manageable. The cables are pretty straightforward, so it should be good. For the lace sweater, I've also been talking about this a lot, but my plan is to knit The Poet by Sari Nordlund. But there are so many ones that are just beautiful out there. So while that's the plan, I know I want to try, you know, juggling lace while also working with sweater construction techniques. Sounds like a fun challenge, and I'm very excited for that. So yeah, that's, I think, would be a really big push on my knitting skills in general, and I think would be just a really good learning experience, whether it's the Poet sweater or not. But that is definitely the next one on the list. And then the one I'm the most nervous about is the colorwork sweater. I think they're gorgeous. Obviously, I mean, a good colorwork sweater is just absolute work of art. The reason I'm nervous is I've only ever done one colorwork project before. So I do have some experience with lace and cable knitting, even if they're not in garments. But for color work, all I've tried in the past is one color work hat. That went very, very badly. So when I got back into knitting this last time around, so middle of last year, probably, middle of 2023, I had started this hat a couple of years ago, and just set it aside when I had sort of paused on knitting for a while. And I had almost finished the brim. It was double folded brim. And I, for the life of me, can't remember the name of the pattern off the top of my head right now, but I will link it in the description box below, along with any other patterns I talk about. Just so you can, if you want to look up the pattern, just see what I was attempting. It's not a super difficult hat or anything. It does have a few long floats, but I thought it would be a good beginner color work pattern when I picked it out. And it probably was a good one. I mean, I have an idea of what I did wrong, so I plan to go back and try again on it. But basically what happened is I just knit the whole thing way, way too small, and then my floats were way, way too tight. So even without the issue in the colorwork section, I think I picked the wrong size hat. So like the brim itself is too small and it doesn't have any colorwork in it. Oh, there's grass in my yarn. This yarn actually has a lot of grass in it. It's kind of interesting. So, you know, it was going to be too small regardless. It didn't really stand a chance. But then, despite, I swear in my head I was leaving the floats so loose, like I thought I was. But I think my knitting in general was just too tight. And yeah, there's no stretch at all. That has solid. It doesn't go on anybody's head. And it makes me so sad because the colors I picked are so pretty, and I do really love the look of it, which is why, like I said, I'm going to rip it out and try again. Because, yeah, I love it. Like, I want to own the hat. It's so pretty, but it was an absolute fail. So, with that being said, I do have the goal to knit a colorwork sweater. Just because, you know, just because you failed at something the first time doesn't mean you don't try again, first of all. But I also feel like I'm just as capable of figuring these techniques out on a sweater as I am at, retrying this hat. I feel like, it's okay if the hat is a little frustrating. Like the sweater right now feels more exciting to my brain. So I don't mind just jumping straight into a colorwork sweater after this. The colorwork sweater I'm eyeing is very simple. It's not like the one I want to start with. It's not like a big yoke or anything. It's the Funfetti Raglan by what's her name? I think it's Andrea Gaughan. I might have gotten the name wrong. Again, I'll put it up here, and then I'll also link it in the description box below. But it's super cute sweater, and it's just every, I think, other row, it has like 1 by 1 stranded ribbing. So like one color of your main, 1 stitch of your main, 1 stitch of your contrast, all the way around. And it does it with like however many contrasting colors you want. So it ends up this really pretty, colorful sweater. And I feel like because there are 0 long floats on it, it would actually be a really good one to learn on, is my hope. But also it's just so cute and it's very my style. I very much like color in my life, and that sweater I think would just be the most fun way to play with color that I could think of, and pick all your contrasting colors and see how they go together. And yeah, I think it'd be a lot of fun. So that's my other goal. So we'll do cabled sweater, lace sweater, colorwork sweater, and that's my big to-do list for the year. Really build all those skills up as much as I can. And I think that's pretty much it for things that I want to knit. Like goals of things that I want to knit. I think I'm gonna obviously knit, I hope, more than that this year, but I don't want to plan my whole year out just now. Just sort of the big highlight pieces, really. That's the plan right now. Just the big highlights mapped out. As for goals that don't have to do with what I'm making, my main goal is just to try and find a sustainable knitting level. I tend to go really hard on hobbies, like to the point where they completely consume my life, hence the Knitter Obsessed channel title. But that's not always sustainable. It's not sustainable to our bodies necessarily. It's not sustainable to our brains, and just our lives in general. Like we have other responsibilities. Like I work a full-time job and teach dance on the side, and I have a husband and dogs and responsibilities to my family. And so sometimes I can't just knit all day. Even though when I'm dropped a stitch. Even though when I'm in the middle of being pretty obsessive on a hobby, that is all that I want to do, is knit all day. But even when I can knit all day, you also, I feel like, really risk the chance of burnout when you come at a hobby like that. You run the risk of doing it for 6 months, a year and a half, maybe even, but then just, I don't know, losing steam, losing that rewarding feeling that it gives you. It starts to become more of a chore after a little while, and that is what I don't want to have happen. I want this time around with knitting to be the time that sticks. I want this to stay in my life forever. Hopefully, assuming nothing, bad happens with my hands or my body. I want to be a bigger, more involved in this community in general, and to, find a home in this community is the plan. So that's my goal, is finding a way to love this hobby, to pursue it, to continue to push myself in it, and, be obsessed with it. I'm not saying I can't be obsessed with it. I don't think I can help being obsessed with it. But to be obsessed with it in a way where I will still get to be obsessed with it in 40 years. So that work starts this year. Finding that balance is my goal for this year so that I can continue to have that balance forever. And I don't know that I'll be able to measure that, in a year. I don't think that I'll be able to come back and be like, oh, yes, based on my data, I clearly found the exact balance. No, I mean, it's not something you can measure. It's a gut feeling. And that balance is going to shift day to day, week to week, month to month. But I just want to keep it in the back of my mind. I want that to be a focus. And yeah, like I said, as a fairly obsessive person, balance is not always the easiest for me. So I'm just trying to make sure that I'm considering that. Every time I cast on a project, every time I travel with a project, just, am I being present in the moment? Am I letting this take over too much? Or am I embracing a hobby that I love? There's ways to embrace and be obsessed and not lose your connection to the other parts of your life. So, yeah. But I think that's it for my knitting goals. Like I said, I'm not a huge goal person. And so I don't want to give myself too many. I just want to give myself little fun things to look forward to going forward so that I stay motivated, but not that so I feel overwhelmed. That's the whole idea. Yeah. I'm excited to own a pair of knit socks though. That will be fun. I think it'll just be I have a feeling I'm gonna be so afraid to wear them the first few times. Like standing on my own knitting feels like it would freak me out, but I know it's okay. I know that's what they're for. I'm excited to have wool socks on my feet, so keep you updated on that one. As for some other goals, so I have a few goals related to the podcast itself, namely just to keep it going. My main goal is to try and, release a video every week this year. If I miss a week here or there for, because life happens. I'm not going to beat myself up about it. None of these goals are things that I'm going to let be stressful, even the ones pertaining to, building my knitting community and my, knitting channel. Like, this is still a hobby. This is still for fun. This is to be a part of a community. If there's a week I can't release a video, I will apologize to you guys and let you know. So you're not expecting something, but I'm not going to let this become a major stressor in my life. Knitting's a relaxing hobby, it shouldn't be stressful. But my goal, my plan, my intention is to release a video every single week for the next year and beyond. But again, we're doing goals for the year. And then I don't have any goals as far as subscriber counts or watch hours or any of those analytic things. I just want this to be organic. This is for fun. I'm not I don't have any major goals with this channel necessarily other than to have fun and to find a community and people to talk to about my knitting. So yeah, I guess that's a weird way of saying I don't have that many goals related to this podcast other than to make it and to make it consistently and to make it of a quality that I'm proud of. So I have been learning about video editing through all of this and a little bit of working on my, eye for the thumbnail designs and all of those things. And so I guess my goal is to improve all of those skills because they're brand new to me. I've never done this before. I don't come from any sort of video editing or graphic design background. I do physics as my job, so that's definitely not pertinent to any of the video editing stuff. But it's been a lot of fun to learn these skills, and so I think my focus throughout the year would be to just improve on them, increase the quality, increase the production value, and just work to make content that I'm more and more proud of as time goes on. And I think that will be really rewarding and just a lot of fun. And so again, I guess this is another goal that it's going to be hard to really measure at the end of it. Like, it's sort of up to me whether I feel like I successfully gained that knowledge at the end of this, I suppose. It's a bit subjective. But I I think it'll be interesting to look back, you know, after a year and see, you know, am I proud of what am I proud of what I've accomplished? Am I proud of what I've learned? Am I proud of what I'm putting out into the world and how far I've pushed myself? And yeah, I think it's going to be a really fun adventure this year, and I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. So those are my main knitting goals, my main knitting podcast goals. I think that's a lot, to be totally honest. And not because I'm, you know, like I said, I made a point to not come up with too many things I want to make necessarily, but I feel like a lot of those goals are just kind of big, you know, like learn a lot of things. They're just very open-ended goals, which means they can, you know, be as big or as small as I want, but it does mean that I think just having one or two bigger open-ended goals like that is a lot to focus on throughout the year, in a good way, not, you know, not a stressful way, but, you know, and I don't want to give myself too many of those. I want to make sure that I can really focus on those couple of bigger goals and really give them enough attention and not feel like I'm being bogged down by a ton of teeny tiny little goals that are stressing me out and feeling like burdens. So yeah, that's the gist. Other goals in my life, like career-wise, I find career goals to be kind of boring. I never make them. I just feel like I like my job, but it's a job. I don't bring it home with me. I don't think about it too much when I'm not at work. And so I have like no major goals there. Me and my husband usually have big travel goals throughout the year. So we're actually going to Japan this year at the beginning of May, which, by the way, if anyone has any good yarn shop recommendations in Osaka, I would love to hear them. Be there for a week. And if you know, I need some yarn as a souvenir for sure. So that would be fantastic. If you had anything for me, you could leave it in the comments. But other than Japan, because Japan's such a big trip, we don't actually have any other travel goals. We decided we were going to take a little bit of a break after that and start saving up some money and sort of focusing more on that side of things for a little bit and maybe doing more local trips. Like we like going to the coast up here in Northern California or out to, you know, Tahoe, like things that are a little bit closer for us that are still fun trips, but not any big, huge travel trips this year. So nothing really there. And then the only other big part of my life is ballet. So if you're new here, I teach ballet it's the teen and adult beginner class that my studio offers. And so it's for people who've come to ballet a little bit later in life that, you know, didn't start it when they were like 6 or 7 when their parents put them in it. And so it's a little slower. It goes over the basics a bit, and I think it's a fantastic way to keep ballet accessible to anybody who wants to dance. Because I think everybody should have that choice, and I think it can be, I know it can be, because I just got back into ballet a couple of years ago as an adult. But it can be extremely hard to find classes sometimes when you are, you know, not a teenager, not on that traditional path where you started when you're a little kid and you're, you know, just moving up through the ranks at that age. So I love that the studio offers classes for people who want to come into it later, and that it's completely accessible, and it gives them opportunities to perform on stage, to dance with their peers. It's a really fantastic program, and that is what I teach. And so I, last year, I had a goal of pushing my own dancing as far as I possibly could. I turned 30 last year, and I had a little bit of a, I know 30 isn't old, okay, I'm super aware of that, but I happened to throw my back out right when I turned 30, like 2 weeks before my 30th birthday. And so I had a little bit of a panic attack, like about getting older and about my body not working as much as it used to, like as well as it used to. And I'm good now. I mean, like I did a lot of like work on my brain and myself to figure out like why I freaked out like that, and I'm in a much better place now. But I decided, I'd already decided before I threw my back out, but that sort of cemented it. But last year is the year of me pushing my own dancing as far as I could, and so I actually went to a ballet intensive in London for a week, and I had a couple of really major roles in our studio's production of The Nutcracker. I ended up dancing the Sugar Plum Fairy role for one of the shows, which was fantastic, but also absolutely terrifying. And when all was said and done at the end of the year, I had injured myself so many times. And I had pushed myself well beyond my limits. And again, I was talking about, the knitting, like you can burn yourself out because you have too many, it's hard to balance with the rest of your life sometimes. Ballet is like that times 100, because, not only am I taking all that time up in the studios and doing the extra, exercises outside of class, but it's physically exhausting as well. And so I wasn't giving myself enough rest. I wasn't balancing my life well enough. And so a lot of those injuries were just overuse, overwork. And after Nutcracker, I was like, I need to slow down. And so I still dance. I dance a couple days a week. But I'm working on cutting back and taking a breather and being a little nicer to my body and listening to what my body needs. And so my goal for this year, rather than being about my own dancing, is about my teaching. I've only been teaching for about a year, and I never expected to like teaching. I didn't think I'd be a good teacher. I didn't have a bit of imposter syndrome, I suppose you could say. Like, I just felt like I wasn't qualified, maybe. But I started to get, my feet wet, and I started to kind of feel it out, and I started to find my own style, and I realized that I love it. Like, I love teaching dance. It is so rewarding, and it feels so good, and like creatively, it's the best creative outlet that I have, like up there with knitting. Like, teaching ballet it just scratches the itch for creating. Like, I don't know, I'm stumbling over my words, I'm sorry. And I guess what surprised me is it feels more creatively fulfilling to me than dancing did, almost. Because when you're dancing, a lot of the times you're doing someone else's choreography. Even in class, like when we're doing our bar work and stuff, like somebody else is coming up with the combos and having you do them. And so your artistry comes from how you move your body and how you interpret those movements. But when you're teaching, you are creating the choreography, you are creating the movements, and you get to come up with something in your head, explain it to a room full of people, and then watch this thing that was in your head just come to life right in front of you. And I'm blown away by how amazing of a feeling that is. Like, I absolutely love it. So this year I want to focus, my goal is to really focus on my like communication as a teacher, trying to get more clear, trying to be able to reach my students better and more efficiently, and be able to explain things in ways that really resonate with them. I think that's the hardest part of teaching, for sure. I mean, it's like the main point of teaching, but it's something I still need more practice in. And I also want to push myself in my choreography and my classes. Because I teach a fairly beginner class, it can start to get a little routine because we go over a lot of the same things. And so I want to push myself a bit creatively to find new ways to explore a lot of those movements. And I think in finding new ways to explore things, I'll probably will help with the first part of that goal. I'm sure the more variety I introduce, the more I'm going to have to explain things and talk about them, the different ways I'm going to explain things and talk about them. And, you know, eventually I'm going to stumble upon versions of explanations that resonate with one dancer better than another. Yeah, so that's basically my big goal for teaching. The other one that I have is very dependent on how the year goes. So my studio that I dance at recently moved to a bigger building, and it's been amazing. We were in such a small building before. But there's room in this building for a second studio room. And so if they're able to fundraise the money, the plan is to build up that second studio room. And if they do, there'll be more room in the schedule for other classes. And so my hope, my other big goal is dependent on that studio being opened. Because I would like to teach an advanced class if I can, an advanced ballet class. I've subbed for the advanced class several times, and it is a joy to teach. I love those dancers. They're so fun to choreograph on, and it's we can get into some really, really interesting topics and movements in those classes, and I really enjoy them. But then I also pitched to them starting my own class that would be brand new to the studio if we have space in the schedule once we open the new room. That wouldn't be ballet, which I love ballet, but I've danced basically all genres, and so it would be nice to get back to some of the other genres. But I want to teach sort of a contemporary class that would be very improv heavy, and really focus on exploring different styles within contemporary. Like, you know, sometimes contemporary can be a little jazzier, sometimes it can be a little bit more ballet, sometimes it can be very interpretive. But just really focusing on movement qualities and different sort of feelings of movement in that class. And I think that would be absolutely a blast. And I mean, I'm talking about creative fulfillment. I think that one would check all of the boxes. So if that studio gets open, that'll be a huge goal of mine later this year, is to get that class developed and up and running, and grow a little student base with it. So I'm excited. I hope it happens. We'll see. But yeah, I'll be busy. Lots of projects this year. Lots going on. All things I'm super excited about. Yeah, I'm looking forward to a fun year. And so I'll mark on my calendar next March 2025. I will rewatch this video and I will see, you know, remind myself what these goals were, and see how many of them I got done, which ones I was able to focus on, which ones ended up getting put on the back burner. If this contemporary class even gets to happen, we'll see. And yeah, we'll compare notes and we'll make new ones. And we'll just, I think this will be fun. I think, like I said, these are notes for future reflections, not bullet points intended to stress me out. Very important. So with that, I'm probably gonna leave it there. I've been rattling on for quite some time now. I feel like this got a little rambly, which I apologize if that was the case. It's I hadn't written any of this down. It was very much off the top of my head. I had, you know, obviously considered these ahead of time, because, you know, I didn't just want to come up here and like, well, I guess this will be the goal. Like, I've been thinking about the goals for a while, but I didn't necessarily write them down in a list or write down my exact thoughts on them, because I just wanted this to be an organic conversation. But that means it probably got a little off topic and a little rambly in spots. So thank you for bearing with me on that. But what are your guys' goals? Like, let me know. I am genuinely intrigued because I find the way that everybody approaches this hobby especially, but, really any avenue of their life, I find it's, everyone approaches things differently. And so, you might be someone who works really well with very concrete goals that very much guide your knitting and that you come back to and you double check in on and all that stuff. Or you might be someone who can't, doesn't want any goals at all because this is just for fun and it's creative and you just go where the wind takes you. With wherever your creativity is pulling you at that time, and that's also completely, valid. Not just valid, but like I find it just very interesting how we all approach this just so differently, and different things just work for all of us. So, jump into the comments down below and tell me how you approach your knitting, what your goals are, if you have any. Do you find, like me, that you have to actively focus on keeping balance in your life between your, life and living and knitting? Because that's where I'm at right now. Like that is probably the most important goal of mine, because it's taken over a little bit. And I don't hate it, but I do know at some point I probably got to pull it back just a tiny bit. Not too much, but finding that balance. And yeah, like, I don't know, this just, like I said, this is meant to be a conversation. Like, I want to hear from you guys. I'll be in the comments too, and we can talk about all of this and see where we're at, and then maybe in a year you can see what comments you wrote down and compare your own goals, and we can have this conversation again. Yeah, and anyways, I am just kind of stalling for time now because I want to get back to my beginning around marker so I can show you guys how much progress I made, and show you my beginning around marker because I just got this in the mail and I think it's really cool. I went on a bit of a shopping spree the other day and I bought a bunch of yarn stitch markers off of Etsy. And what's really weird is I went in there very specifically looking for a moose stitch marker, which is a story I'll probably talk about in a separate podcast because I think this one's long enough. But I got completely distracted, didn't even kind of look for a moose stitch marker. And instead got this sweet, Plague Doctor stitch marker. It's just so cool. It's all metal, and it's got little gold accents and everything. But I got these and then a bunch of little moth ones. I'll show them off in a different video, but and I got them off of Etsy. I'll put the name of the Etsy shop up here so you can see it, and I'll also tag it in the description box below. But they're really high quality. Really recommend them. They're a lot of fun. But let's see. So ignoring the beginning around marker, where I had the little light bulb pin is where I started. So, not bad. Maybe like half an inch or so, 3/4 of an inch. Yeah, making progress. It's slowly growing. It's cropped right now. It's a good cropped length. But yeah. Anyways, thank you so much for spending this time with me and knitting with me, chatting with me. I can't wait to hear from you guys. And yeah, until the next video, I'll see you next time. Bye.